Hello, everyone. I'm Blayne Gilmer. Welcome to Southeastern 14. Thank you so much for joining us here on the channel that covers all things SEC related football, baseball, basketball, but we are diving headlong into football season. Vanderbilt has already started fall camp as they open up week 0 with Hawaii. The rest of the SEC schools will get started here before too long. So football season is officially here, folks. The talking season is over, but we got to add just a couple little things here because the SEC all conference teams were voted on by the media, and there was some guys that were on there but maybe weren't as high as I thought they were, or some guys that were left off altogether that were total snubs off of this list, and also guys that just aren't getting talked about that much at all that are going to be very important to their teams going forward. So we're going to break it up into 2 separate videos. This one's going to be on offensive underrated players in the SEC, and then we'll look at the underrated defensive players in another video coming up. But guys, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to start off showing the offensive line a little bit of love. Kenneth Horsey, he got kicked out the tackle. Now he's going to get moved back to his position on the offensive line at guard. Listen, it's no secret that Kentucky's offensive line struggled last year, but that smile that you see on Mark Stoops' face, part of the reason that it's there, Kenneth Horsey's coming back, and that is a big deal for Kentucky, a guy that's played a lot of ball. He's going to be a great leader. Some physicality now back at his natural position of guard. That is going to be huge for this Kentucky team. They brought in a couple of tackles over there in the transfer portal. So Kenneth Horsey being on the interior of that offensive line for Kentucky, I've got him at number 10 when it comes to being a underrated offensive player in the SEC heading into 23. Number 9, I got Daijun Edwards at Georgia. All this guy does is come in and just bring the lunch pail. He is a blue-collar guy, hardly ever says a word. But listen, Georgia is going to be without Branson Robinson early on, the young freshman that was a freshman last year and kind of burst onto the scene with his strength, looking a little bit like Nick Chubb, how he did coming in there, just a unbelievable physical specimen. And Daijun Edwards, all he's done has been very, very consistent for Georgia. He's closed out a lot of games, been kind of that finisher of some games for Georgia, but he could early on have some extra opportunities, and I wouldn't be shocked with how he is able to just very subtly elude defenders, keep his legs churning, yards after contact. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked up middle of the season and see Daijun Edwards leading Georgia in rushing. He is number 9 on the underrated offensive player list. Number 8, another running back, Montrell Johnson, came up from the Sun Belt and Louisiana Lafayette, followed Billy Napier to Gainesville, Florida, and all he did was come in and run like a grown man. Over 800 yards rushing. Montrell Johnson was behind that big Florida offensive line last year. They're going to need him down there because there's questions at quarterback, questions at receiver. We know that Trevor Etienne gets all the accolades because of how great he was as a freshman for Florida. But Montrell Johnson coming back, that veteran presence, a guy that Billy Napier trusts, he can be a thumper when you need him to be in between the tackles, but also plenty explosive as well. Number 8 on the list, Montrell Johnson. Isaiah Bond comes in at number 7, and number 17 on the field for Alabama out at wide receiver, can absolutely fly. Part of that Buford, Georgia to Alabama pipeline that's been going on for Nick Saban and company. Tommy Rees is going to have a guy who, listen, he's been on record saying, listen, Alabama is able to run deep option, deep choice routes where they make decisions at 20, 30 yards down the field. He couldn't do that at Notre Dame. He can do that with Isaiah Bond, a bona fide track star, a guy that was in the 10-2s. And when you talk about 100-meter times and things of that nature, Isaiah Bond can absolutely fly. Him and Kobe Prentice. I think Kobe Prentice could very easily be on this list. A lot of the attention is focused on, okay, it's Jason McClellan's time at running back. Okay, who's going to be the quarterback at Alabama? But people kind of forget the wide receiver talent is very much so there. When they do talk about it, most of the time they talk about Burton and Brooks, but Bond, they got the killer bees over there at Bama, and Bond is one of them. He's going to be able to absolutely fly, and I look for him to have a big year this year, coming in number 7, most underrated offensive players in the SEC. Number 6, I got Kyren Lacy. Kyron Lacey is a guy that you're going to look at stats, and if you're watching this video and you're going to say, oh, the production is not that. I'm just telling you, he could even be a little bit higher because everybody's talking about Malik Nabers right now. But Kyron Lacey is a guy who showed off his freakish athleticism, one-handed acrobatic catch in the spring game, but he is a chain mover. He's a guy who's tough as nails, and when it's third down and you need a guy to get to the sticks or make a catch in contested catch in traffic, Kyron Lacey's that guy, and he's part of what I think makes LSU's wide receiving core the best wide receiving core overall in the SEC. Guys like Malik Nabers, Kyron Lacy, Brian Thomas, Chris Hilton, Landon Abetta. They've got so many guys over there that can just go get the football. And now in year 2 with Jaden Daniels over there and Mike Denbrock as the offensive coordinator, I think you're going to see Kyron Lacy have a big year this year. He comes in at number 6 on the list. At number 5, we've got Jordan Watkins. Jordan Watkins, yes, there's a lot of receivers on this list, but receivers, there's more of them than any other position other than offensive line. So some of them tend to slip through the cracks when it comes to coverage. Jordan Watkins is the most experienced receiver that returns to Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin's offense. He's a guy that can return punts as well. Caught 40 balls last year, has a rapport with Jackson Dart, ends up being the guy for Ole Miss this year. So that will be interesting to see how that all plays out. But we know that Jordan Watkins can make plays. He can bring some leadership for some of the transfer receivers that Ole Miss has brought on board. So I like Jordan Watkins at number 5 on my underrated offensive players heading into 2023 season list. Number 4, we're going with Ramel Keaton. Ramel Keaton is a guy who stepped up big for Tennessee when Jalen Hyatt was out at different points last year. He can make plays down the field. A lot of people, talk about the speed of Squirrel Wright. They talk about Brew McCoy a lot. Ramel Keaton is a guy who's just been very, very consistent. He makes plays, and he's going to have the opportunity to really stretch the field this year. And I mean really stretch the field because Joe Milton can throw it a country mile. So Ramel Keaton, just keep running, man, and Joe will find you down the field. So Ramel Keaton, Tennessee, we know what Josh Heupel can do with talented receivers. Ramel Keaton is certainly one of those. He comes in at number 4 on the underrated offensive player list heading into the 2023 season in the SEC. Number 3, some more offensive line love. Beau Limmer. He's moving over to center from guard, played nearly 1,000 snaps last year. Seems like he's been there forever for Sam Pittman. Just coming over and being a guy who can be that versatile, can move over, can play center for KJ Jefferson. I think that is a big deal in terms of, okay, this is how much this guy means, is how much we trust him to be able to do that. Because at center, you got to be able to set protections. You got to be able to identify the mic, especially in Dan Enos's offense. KJ Jefferson and Beau Limmer are going to have to work closely together. He's just Sam Pittman has referred to him as a freak of nature physically, but he's also a great teammate, a guy who leads. Beau Limmer, like I said, feels like he's been there at Arkansas forever. They have guys like that come along, like Bumper Pool. Seems like on the defensive side, he's been there forever. Everybody talks about KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders and questions, who the wide receivers are going to be. But in the middle of that offensive line, under Sam Pittman for Arkansas, Beau Limmer and Brady Latham, both of those guys are vastly underrated in my opinion. I think you're going to see Beau Limmer have a great year for Arkansas. He comes in at number 3 on the underrated offensive player list in the SEC heading into the 2023 season. Number 2 is Will Rogers. And, you could even call me out on this a little bit, overlooking him. I put him at number 4 on the SEC quarterback list that I put out. He's getting close to setting about every record there is in the SEC. And yes, I know he threw the ball a ton because he was in Mike Leach's air raid offense, but I'm telling you, to get named at number 3 on the SEC for the media, to name it, not analysis, but the media, which is really more of a, lifetime achievement award based off statistics, all that kind of stuff type thing, for the media to put him in a tie with Joe Milton, who's done virtually nothing. Yes, he's got immense talent, but he's done virtually nothing for Tennessee, is great disrespect to Will Rogers. I think that Will Rogers is a guy, that's something I didn't do on my list because Joe has not proved it to me. Will Rogers, he at least made the top 5 in my list because he's consistent and we know what he can do. He's going to set a ton of records there this year. I think he's going to really thrive in Kevin Barbay's offense going from the air raid to pro style. He made the comment at SEC Media Days, hey, what do you like about this offense? They asked, and he goes, there's so much more room to throw the football, meaning he saw a lot of drop 8 in the air raid. People trying to take away that spread attack by dropping 8 defenders out in space. And he said there weren't as many windows. Now you're going to see more windows because of the play action, being able to turn and hand the ball to Jaquavius Marks. I think you're going to see the leadership of Will Rogers come through right here. So he is the number 2 most underrated offensive player in the SEC heading into 2023. And drum roll, please. Number 1 on the list is a guy who has made a ton of plays last year, didn't have the season that his team wanted, so to speak, but nobody is talking about him going into the year, and it is Muhammed III. Muhammed is a guy that had over 600 yards receiving in a offense that had some quarterback problems last year before Connor Wegman took over, was a little bit stale. We know all the saga with Jimbo Fisher, stuff like that. Now Bobby Petrino comes in, and we saw the flashes of Muhammed late in the year. Connor Wegman putting the ball up, him making contested catches. He's a physical guy, 6'1", 6'2", 195, 200 pounds, has that NFL pedigree, and absolutely is a dog when it comes to going up and getting the football and winning 50-50 battles. He's also kind of got some sneaky explosiveness as well. I like Muhammed. Everybody talks about Evan Stewart. Everybody, talks about Aniyah Smith. Muhammed is a guy that does not get talked about enough, and I think Texas A&M is going to be a team. They've been, fun to be the punching bag and kind of make fun of them over the last couple of seasons. But I think you're going to see, even despite Jimbo Fisher's hesitancy to say so, I think you're going to see him turn the keys over to Bobby Petrino, really bring some life to this offense. These deep choice routes, Bobby Petrino allows his receivers, hey, if the defender does this, you convert your route to this. If him and Connor Wegman are on the same page in terms of Muhammed and Connor Wegman there on some of these deep option routes and the ability that they'll have to take advantage of some of the looks that they're going to get, I think Muhammed has a huge year. And you're talking about a guy that goes from no love in the preseason to, I promise you, he'll be on every postseason all SEC conference list out there. So, guys, we hope that you enjoyed this video. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. We're going to be doing game predictions starting this week for week 0 and week 1. We've previewed every SEC team in depth. You won't find any more in-depth coverage on them. And I can assure you that you're going to want to be subscribed to this channel for all the content we're going to have this season, reacting to games, all the predictions, breaking news, everything SEC. It's right here on Southeastern 14. Chris Lee, Blake Love will do a great job on this channel as well. I'm Blayne Gilmer. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys next time on Southeastern 14 as we cover SEC football.